first things first, no spoilers. Welcome to La Vida Rosa. I'm your host, Pinky, and today we're going to be talking about Love is Blind Season 5, Episodes 1 and 2. So if you'd like to see more, then just stay tuned. Like, comment, and subscribe. And without further ado, let's get into this video. I will be watching the rest of the episodes tonight, and I'm going to try to have the video up the next day, okay? I know something crazy happened because people keep saying, Pinky, you better watch it, you better watch. So that's why I was trying to hurry up and get this video out so I can go ahead and watch it before y'all spoil it for me, okay? We're talking about Love is Blind. I'm gonna give the same gripe I have every season. I kind of feel like, if you're gonna call the show Love is Blind, I feel like y'all should be breaking barriers when it comes to the way people look physically. I feel like y'all should take a page from Rihanna and her Fenty Savage fashion shows. She has people from all walks of life, but most of the people on here are objectively attractive. So yeah, sometimes I wish they would like step outside of the norm of what you see on reality TV and like show us some real people, show us some real everyday people, or people that you don't come across often, or, you know, switch it up just a little bit. But, you know, I don't think we'll ever get that from this show. It's season 5 and they still haven't tried it, so I feel like I'm wasting my breath here. Another thing I'm wasting my breath on is Nick and Vanessa Lachey as hosts. I complained about them on the last season of The Ultimatum. I know we're gonna have the same issue this season unless they ask someone else to host the reunion. I actually wouldn't mind if they hosted during the season, because who really cares, you know? But the reunion, we need the real questions answered, and they always drop the ball. I've been complaining about them since season 1, but I know everybody and their mama done complained about Nick and Vanessa, and here they stand. Y'all know the premise of the show. I do feel like they should only invite people that are 30 and up, because I feel like a lot of people showed the fact that they were so immature based off of their age. At least 25. Let your prefrontal cortex be fully developed before you invite people on this show and have them make a decision on whether they want to be married to someone for the rest of their life or not. But yeah, the men just, I don't know, it's like they couldn't even do small talk well, but then they would be so ready to drop a traumatic story about their childhood, and it's like, where did that even come from? We're gonna get to that. And then it just felt like a lot of the women were just really thirsty for a husband. I hate to say that, because I just hate to call women thirsty for a man, but it just felt like, I just want to be married so bad. By any means necessary, I just want to get married. I guess if you come on a show like this, it kind of leans into that. So I don't know. It also can lead you to get played, and I've been seeing a trend of that in these first 2 episodes. I really wasn't going to talk much about people that are not necessarily coupling up. You know, we see couples starting to form, or love triangles or whatever. But I usually don't include the people that don't fall into that. But I did want to talk about Miriam. In case y'all didn't know, I did a first impressions where I read all of the contestants' little bios or whatever. And Miriam stuck out to me. But she said that she was born and raised in Nigeria. But then she had a choice to go to college in the US or the UK. And she chose the US. And she became a scientist. And when she was talking with Uche about, you know, where she lives currently, she was like, yeah, I work in the Middle East. And he was like, oh, but she was like, oh, but I moved back to Houston and I plan to stay here. But the main reason why I brought her up is because she was being so mysterious about this skincare business that she's starting. But she said it's not dermatology based, or it's not products. But what she did say is that it offers a distinct composition. And what does that mean? Y'all, I was like, I had to rewind that a couple of times. I'm like, am I missing something? Like, can somebody in the comments explain to me what it is that this skincare business is? So let's move on to JP and Taylor. JP wears red, white, and blue in every outfit. That's all he wears is red, white, and blue. And when he's sitting on the couch, he has an American flag sitting next to him. When people go out of their way to rep our country that hard, it definitely gives me a side eye. And it makes me wonder, where were you on January 6th? I think it was 2021. Where were you that day? Because that's what it's giving. I'm not trying to say nothing. I'm just saying, usually when people go that hard, that's what route they usually take. But anyway, so he's a fireman and he gravitated towards Taylor. And Taylor she's one of the thickums, one on the thicker side. Very cute. She's a kindergarten teacher. She said that she struggled with self-love. I believe she's 26 years old. And she said she's been single for 2 years and she's ready to get married. It's like, girl, there's no rush. There's no rush. Like, I really hope that she's ready, because, you know, when people struggle with their self-esteem, sometimes they think they're ready for relationships and they inadvertently choose men that take advantage of that. So I really hope that she has healed from all of that. I do like the fact that she made him do push-ups when he started yawning, like, wake up, we ain't finna have another Tiffany situation where you fall asleep on me, okay? She calls him sugar butt. Sugar butt. They'll have like the most shallow, you know, innocent conversations. And then she asked him about his childhood. And when I tell you, that man instantly broke down into tears, like he was a whole puddle sobbing. For it to be that fresh and that on the surface lets me know that's something that actively bothers you to this day and you need help with it. We all have our stuff, but for it to be that fresh and for him to just emotionally unload on her so easily, that was another red flag. I'm sorry. It was. This is first time talking about it. That his mother used to be really angry and would take out his anger not on him but his sisters, and she would just wake them up out of their sleep, trash their bedrooms, and just leave and go to work. And you know, he said he was younger, he couldn't really do anything about it. All he could do was go comfort them, and it clearly still affects him to this day. He said the reason why she didn't make the best decisions when it comes to men, and she didn't want her daughters to make the same ones. That's just no excuse for that. And it seems like they're just like swept under the rug, because it's like, oh, she's better now, she's sweet. But it's like, well, did you ever apologize to your daughters, to your son? Like, clearly he's still struggling with it. And it just seems like y'all just like, oh, well, she's better now. But what really got me is that he had that American flag sitting next to him and he used that to dab his tears. I'm like, I cannot. But he did end up giving a very tearful, very emotional proposal to Taylor. She said yes. And it just made me wonder, like, do they know that day that they're going to be proposed to? Because why do both of them always show up dressed up? It's not just these two. Like, I've noticed that in past seasons. That makes it feel orchestrated, because if somebody was truly gonna be shocked, they would just come in like, oh, I'm just gonna see my boo today. Just like in real life, you don't know necessarily when you're gonna be proposed to. It just comes out of nowhere. Let's move on to Lydia. Lydia, stay running her mouth. Lydia, stay hollering. You can hear Lydia from a mile away. Lydia gonna be screaming somebody's name down the hall. You go, girl. Yeah, get your man. We get it. Lydia's been told her whole life that she's too much, but she doesn't think so. She thinks she'll be able to find someone that will love that aspect of her. She has a connection with Izzy. They're the same age. They both want kids, but they want to be married for a little bit first. Like, they're on the same page with a lot of things. Like I said, a lot of these women were just so like eager to let these men know, I want to lock it down. You're my number one. You know, I feel like she did that a bit too early. And like, don't show your other hand. You ain't got to tell this man all that. You ain't got to tell this man all that. All you got to do is say, you know, I really enjoy your company. You know, we all here to date. But for y'all to lock it down on one man, mind you, Izzy was very popular. We're going to get to him. But for you to just lock it down on one man and this is the one I want, no one else, it's like you should have took a little bit more time getting to know some of the other people. But not too long after she told Izzy that he's her number one, he told her that he wasn't really interested. He tried to let her off easy, but she was just completely heartbroken. She broke all the way down and asked him, what are you not getting? And he just said, you know, the chemistry just isn't there. She's stuck on the fact that she's always turned down and she just doesn't understand why. And it's like, girl, that just wasn't your match. Maybe your match isn't here, but that don't mean you can never find somebody. She was very distraught over that. What kind of turned me off to Lydia is the fact that, you know, she did have a connection with Milton. And let me just go ahead and introduce Milton. He is 24 with a jerry curl, which there's nothing wrong with his hair texture. Nothing wrong with it at all. But it's the combination of the styling and the mustache that gives the 80s. I saw somebody say Richard Pryor. I saw somebody say Lionel Richie. And I feel like both of those are accurate. Kind of thrown off by it because you the youngest one there. Why are you choosing that look? And honestly, he's an attractive guy. He's super tall. All he needs to do is fade that out because he got a cute little curly texture. So just fade that out. He has this like massive 5 o'clock shadow. Grow that hair out. You don't know beards are in? Women love it. Grow, at least get a goatee at the very least if you don't do anything else. The other thing about Milton that was throwing me off is that he says like every other word. And it makes you sound even more childish. Like every other word is like. They did connect on the fact that she is a geologist and he is an engineer, but both of them are into metamorphic rock, and so they kind of connected on the nerdiness of it all. But when she found out his age, she was like, he's younger than my brother, and you know, he is doing well for himself, but that kind of was a turnoff for her. So it just seems like she wasn't really feeling him, like she was just keeping him in her back pocket. And it worked because when she got cut off by Izzy, she literally went crying into the arms of Milton. And it just felt like emotional manipulation to me because she just kept saying, I just want to be loved. I just want to be loved. Even though she was talking about another man, it's like she was trying to pull that sympathy out of him. And I'm just like, I would be so mad if you're sitting up here, I'm dating you and you're crying to me about another person that you would have rather been with. But here I am sitting as a consolation prize. And I don't know, maybe he doesn't see that because he's young, but that's the way I would have took it. And I just feel like at the end of the day, Lydia doesn't really want Milton. She just knows that she can get him. She knows that she can wrap him around her finger. And so she's taking full advantage of that. And part of me feels like Lydia wants to make it to the point where all the couples meet each other because she want to still take a shot at Izzy. That's just how I feel. But we've seen it on this show already. Everybody who's been on this show has seen this show at this point. They can't lie and say they haven't. So they know that eventually all the couples are going to meet up. And she wants to see if she can try to get him again, or at least ruin what he have, because she seemed like that type. But I feel bad for Milton because he has his own things that he's working through. He said he grew up in a strict household, and he grew up in Hawaii and Japan. While he was in Japan, he just didn't feel worthy when he was in school because he just wasn't making the grades, and it made him feel dumb every day. But then when he got to America, he graduated as a junior. And I'm like, not trying to say he's dumb, but that says a lot about our school system. The fact that he could be over in Japan basically failing, but over in America, he graduated early. At least he got what he needed over there. You know what I'm saying? It helped him excel. It pushed him further in life, but it just makes me wonder about our school system. But he said that caused him to grow up fast, and he's secretly insecure, and he uses jokes as a shield, and, you know, he keeps everything inside. I mean, story of your life at that age. For a lot of people, you know, he's young. He still has life to live. So that doesn't shock me. I'm just like, I don't know why this girl, because I'm sorry. I would never talk to a Milton and be attracted, especially with the way he talks. He talks like he's 18. Let's go ahead and move on to Izzy. Ladies love Izzy. And I ain't even gonna lie. When I did my first impressions video and I first saw Izzy, I'm like, oh, he's the one. I knew it. He looks the best out of everyone. And even though the women can't see him, he gives that. He gives that I'm fine. He gives it. Maybe it's the confidence, charisma. I don't know, but the women can hear it, okay? They can hear it in his voice because they after Izzy, okay? He was very sought after. Izzy comes from a Mexican family. He said that he was raised by his mother and aunts, and he said that his whole family is Jehovah's Witness, and therefore he grew up very sheltered and restricted. He wasn't even able to play baseball. He had to hide that. They don't celebrate holidays, so when they had celebrations at school, like little parties or whatever, he had to go to a separate room and watch a movie or just be isolated from that. But one day he decided he wanted to celebrate Easter child. He went to an Easter egg hunt at his neighbor's house. His father caught him, snatched him up, reprimanded him, and he never knew why. He never understood why he couldn't, celebrate these holidays. So then he decided to run away to his cousin's house, and his cousin actually revealed to him that was not his biological father. Clearly that was devastating. I'm like, that has to be one of the most traumatic stories I've ever heard in my life. Oh my goodness. That's crazy. I did not see it going down that rabbit hole. But he also said that is the reason why he wants to get married, because he wants to take on the traditions of his wife's families, because he never had one. He also said he's very insecure about his bald head. He's scared the women are not going to be attracted to him when they see him. And he said he went on a date one time and the woman saw him, took off his hat, saw that he was bald, said ew, and walked away. And I'm like, there's no way that was a black woman, or I'm going to even say a Hispanic woman. There's no way. That let me know right there. It confirmed what I already thought, because in his little bio, it says that, he prefers blonde hair, blue eyed women. Because I don't know one woman of color that will look at Izzy and look at his bald head and say, nah, I don't want that. But he said he's been single for 2 years and he was previously engaged. And I don't know, y'all. I just didn't, like, by the end of the second episode, at first I was like, okay. But then I was like, this man is unserious. Like, I just don't think that he truly wants to be married. Maybe it's the way that he juggled these different women, how he entertained women that he wasn't attracted to, or that he knew that he didn't want to be with. And then when they said that they wanted something more with him, he would move on. Like, that just gives me, you're not serious. I already told y'all that he had to let Lydia know he wasn't interested in her. At the same time, he's connecting with Stacy, and Stacy, she's like fun party girl. She says she liked to be raunchy, blonde hair, blue-eyed woman that seems like she likes to go out to the bar and turn the party up or whatever. They have that fun banter, but she doesn't really go deep. She kind of stays shallow. And he even brought that up. He was like, the other women go deeper, but you don't really go there. And he seemed like he liked that. One thing I do like about Stacy, when Lydia was crying her eyes out about Izzy and all of that happening, I love the fact that she didn't bring up the fact that she had a connection with Izzy. I love how she kept all of that close to the chest and then spread it around, because I feel like a lot of times when these women do that in the pods, when they're talking to the other women, they're trying to be messy. They're trying to place their claim. And it's like, if the man wants you, he'll choose you. There's no reason to throw salt on other people's game or try to intimidate other people, make it feel like, oh, I have a better connection than the next woman. There's no need to do that. And I like that Stacy, she didn't take the chance to kick somebody while they were down. And I really like that about her. The same way the women knew Izzy is fine, I feel like that's the same way that Izzy knew Stacy is this blonde, skinny girl of his dreams, because he showed dropping everybody left and right for her. And I feel like he zeroing in on her because he knows physically she's his type too. So let's move on to Johnny. She said that her last relationship was 6 months ago. And when I was doing first impressions, that was an automatic red flag. Why are you here? Are you really over your ex? And that is only going to snowball for me moving forward. She said that she has dated people with addiction issues in the past. And that's another red flag. Well, are you an enabler? Like, how are you coming across all of these people that have done drugs in the past? But she does claim to be healed. Because she's a lawyer, she doesn't want everyone to think that she's argumentative. She said her parents are still married. She's one of 6 children. And because of her rocky dating past, her mother told her one day that maybe she was just meant to be alone. And I'm like, how your mama say that to you? That really disgusted me. I'm like, really? Your mom said that? Anyway, so she's juggling two men, and she's also dating Izzy, but she's dating Chris as well. Chris is a really sweet guy. He seems like he's such a sweet, soft-hearted man that just, because he's so nice, he gets walked all over. He's a pushover type of man. He did tell this very terrible story about how he lost his virginity by a girl pressuring him, and he said no, but it's kind of like because of all the peer pressure, he just went forward with it anyway. And I thought that was awful. We don't hear men talk about that often, but I could totally see how that could happen. I could totally see it, because maybe he didn't want to be teased about it, and he was just like, okay, let me just go ahead and get this over with. Awful. But it just feels like him and Johnny were more so trauma bonding than connecting. She is his first choice. Like, no, he's talking about her with the men. First thing he thinks about when he wakes up and goes to sleep at night. He loved him some Johnny. He even dropped the L-bomb to her and told her that he wanted to marry her. I'm mad I didn't pay attention, but I don't think she ever said it back. And I don't think she ever was like, oh, I want to marry you too. She definitely didn't reciprocate that. So that should have been a little signal to him right there. Behind his back, she said that he was a safe choice, and she could see herself being with him long term. But Izzy is the one that really gets her gears going. She be blushing and giggling with him like she's a whole schoolgirl child. And she ended up telling Izzy that her relationship with Chris was more like a friendship, and that she just feels more with Izzy, and that he's her number one. The same way she didn't reciprocate to Chris, he didn't reciprocate to her when she said that. He didn't say, well, you're my number one. He didn't say that. So there should have been a red flag to her right there. I don't think Izzy really said anything to make her feel comfortable enough to go to Chris and tell this man that, yeah, I have a better connection with Izzy, and so I'm about to cut you off. Like, you could have continued dating. Now, look, a part of me respects that. I was finna get mad at her for cutting Chris off, but I'm gonna go ahead and be real. If you don't want Chris, I'd rather you cut him off now before he gets in too deep. He already said I love you and he wanted to marry you. I actually respect her for cutting him off before he proposed, because that would have been too much, So I kind of do respect her for that. What I didn't respect is how she did it. Like, she just cut him off, and she was just kind of cold about it and ready to leave as soon as she did. And I understand, why would you want to stick around? But Chris was so hurt. He was crying, and it hurt his heart, but it's for the best, Chris. You need to go find somebody that actually is going to care about you the same way that you care about them. So then she went back to tell Izzy, I cut Chris off for you. He already heard it. He said, the man was really hurt. She tried to pretend like she felt bad, but I don't think she really felt bad like that. I don't know. She wanted to be with Izzy too bad. But once again, she told Izzy that Chris is just a more safer option, and she really wants to be with him. In that same session, she went more in depth on the fact that she was in a relationship with an addict, and they broke up the fact that he was addicted to drugs. And about 2 years later, after she had married someone else, she found out that he overdosed, and that put a strain on that relationship, and they ended up breaking up. And that's devastating. Like, I'm not going to act like that really is devastating. I can't imagine that happening. But she kept saying that's the only man that she ever loved. And I'm like, how was that the only man you ever loved, and you was married to somebody? So you didn't love the man you were married to? That would be a red flag to me, because that tells me you're capable of marrying someone without loving them. And I wouldn't even want to fool with you after that. And Izzy asked her, like, well, how did you even get to marrying this other guy? And she was like, he was the rebound. And I'm like, I don't know. Y'all, even though I feel like Izzy is not serious, I would have been turned off by that too, because he was like, well, since that was the love of your life and you married someone and they couldn't even fill that role, do you think somebody could ever? And she was like, yeah, but he was also turned off by the fact that she's just now telling him. And he just was real quiet child. He didn't know how to accept any of that. And at that point, she should have known that connection is over with. Obviously, she felt the standoffishness from him, and so she went back in the pods with other women and started talking about how she's the best match for him, and he's gonna regret it if he chooses Stacy because, you know, that's his Chris and that's not his real match, and that would be the safe choice, but I'm his real match. It's like, girl, you're just projecting on this situation. How would you even know? Has he even told you about his relationship with her? How would you know? How would you know what type of relationship they have? Yeah, like that mean girl side came out of her, and I was really like, oh, like that was ugly. I couldn't believe she said that. But girl, you shot yourself in the foot. I'm glad you broke up with Chris before you did that with Izzy, because Chris don't deserve to be no second choice. It feels like you're gonna lose Izzy too. Really, you need to go work on yourself, because you not healed like you say you are, because you wouldn't be acting the way you are. Anyway, let's move on to Uche and Aaliyah. Uche is a lawyer. He's very analytical. When he was talking to one of the women, he was bringing up marriage statistics, and I'm like, why are you doing that? You know, the women were just calling him boring in general, but one person that wasn't calling him boring was Aaliyah. Aaliyah loves the fact that he's nerdy. She is an ICU nurse, and she said she lived in Japan for 9 years, and she's very ambitious and motivated. They both connected on the fact that they love to play guitar and write poetry. Uche doesn't do it as much, but he loves the fact that she does, because it will help bring out some of that former passion that he once had. They really did seem like they connected on like a lot of things. Then at some point she asked him what his deal breakers were, and he basically said dishonesty, and she agreed. And then the subject of cheating came up, and she admitted to cheating 2 years ago on her partner. And mind you, I'm about to read their complete conversation, but just know Uche's voice was very dry. Uche is a lawyer. It sounded like he was cross-examining the witness, and I want to say, stop badgering the witness, okay? Because he was going in with the questions. I wasn't mad at the questions. I wasn't mad at the questions at all. But I'm just going to go into the conversation. We'll talk about it. So, you know, she admitted that it happened 2 years ago. He was like, oh, it was recent. You're a recent cheater. And she said that basically she wasn't satisfied with her relationship for 2 years in the bedroom, years. And he said, well, why didn't you just break up? She said she didn't want to be alone and she would miss his good qualities. He was like, this isn't good. Did you tell him? She very hesitantly said no. So this man, to this day, until this episode aired, was in a relationship with this woman for 2 years and never knew that she cheated on him. Now, cheating is scandalous enough, but the man didn't even know he was cheated on. That was crazy. Like, I feel like all of that was wild. I'm not mad at Uche for asking the questions he was asking, right? She was like, well, she just didn't want to hurt him. He was like, was that for him or for you? And she was like, well, it wasn't for me. And he was like, well, you don't feel embarrassed or ashamed? She said, I felt guilt for a very long time. Basically, he said her not telling him was not about not hurting him. It's about her not having to confront the embarrassment and guilt of it all. She gave the excuse that she just didn't want to hurt his career. She didn't want to slow him down or whatever she said. It's like, girl, stop giving these excuses. You ain't making yourself look better. He was like, well, you telling him would make you an honest person, and he would have wanted to know. At this point, I feel like he was like, okay, you're really digging in the heels. You really kind of rubbing it in. He was like, well, I cheated when I was 18, but it was only a kiss. He was like, but if I ever went this far, my conscience would eat me up and would make me tell. How much longer after you cheated did you stay? She stayed 3 more months. And then he asked her how many times did she do it? She said only once, and that's the only time she's ever cheated. And he was like, well, you should have just broken up. And she was like, I would definitely do it different now. And he said, thank you for your honesty. She said, that was a long time ago. And he was like, it was only 2 years ago. And I'm like, okay, yeah, don't act like it was just years ago. Like, yeah, it was 2 years, but 2 years ain't that long. And she was feeling very judged at the time. She's like, clearly you think differently of me now. And he was quiet for a long time, and she couldn't take the intensity of the conversation. So she just ran out sobbing into the hallway, and women were consoling her. And she didn't hear him finish the conversation, because at the end he said, well, you didn't have to tell me, but you did, and that was a good thing. And I feel like if she would have just stayed like a couple of minutes longer, I feel like it didn't have to go the way that it did. Like, that was so dramatic for no reason. It didn't have to get to that point. I feel like she was feeling very guilty, not only for what she did, but for the fact that this man that you was with for this long is going to find out on TV. I feel like you was embarrassed about that. And I can understand that, but I also understand him asking those questions. He was trying to see if it was truly a deal breaker, if he could get past it. And I like when he was talking to the other men about the situation, he was very ambiguous. Like, he didn't say her name. He didn't say what the deal breaker was. He said that he valued her honesty. Like I said, I feel like if she would have slowed down and just let it play out, it would have been a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, she ran into the pods crying, and the women were consoling her. And then Lydia came over, and I know Lydia was just trying to help, but I felt like Lydia was kind of projecting onto the situation and saying we're so much alike, and saying that he shouldn't be judging her and he needs to resolve his own traumas, and saying that he can't even take accountability, just completely overstepping because you don't even know what happened. I hate when people come into a situation giving all this unwarranted advice and don't even know both sides, don't even know what's really going on. Like, I don't know. I feel like she was projecting whatever she's going through or whatever she has been through, and it was just too much. It's like, just let her vent. You ain't gotta say all of that. The other women were just standing there consoling her, and they weren't doing all, like, it's almost like she was trying to take her moment too. It's almost like, I'm the one crying. Why are we putting all of this, like, why are you drawing all of the attention to yourself? Like, it was so annoying. Maybe she was really trying to help, but that was getting on my nerve. Lydia just talked too much. Ugh. So she did end up meeting back with him, and she told him that she doesn't want to feel judged or condemned by him. She ended up saying that she didn't like the fact that he said, how do I know you won't do this again? And unless it was edited out, he never said that. But he ended up apologizing anyway, took full responsibility for all of it, and said his issue was because of his past. He was looking for something wrong when there isn't anything there, and realizes it was a hard thing for her to admit to, and he should have created a safe space for the truth, since that's what he was seeking. I also feel like she needs to understand that most people are going to have questions and most likely will react similarly. Like, especially in a situation like that, like, I would be asking all the questions too. But I do think he went overboard at certain points, but I wasn't mad at him for asking those questions, because that's something horrible to do to somebody, and you don't want to possibly set yourself up for that same thing to happen to you. So I could see where he was coming from with the questioning. Like I said, I don't even feel like it would have gotten to that point had she stuck around and heard what he had to say. It wouldn't even been all this. This was the Young and the Restless for no reason. And she ended up forgiving him, and they seem like they're on the same page again. So that's it for this review. Once again, no spoilers, please. Let me know what you think down below about this review. Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? I love to hear your opinion, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in my next one. Peace.